Hello everyone, today we are going to talk about hunting mastery, and to do that we are going to use this character. It's a Warden, a level 82 Warden, which is a combination of defense mastery and hunting mastery, the focus of this video. Now this is a really successful character. It uses a high level bow, Dijon's Pride, which mainly deals physical damage, pierce damage, and also bleeding damage a fair amount. Of course, we are using hunting mastery, which uses these three main type of damages. Now, as you can see, this is a bow build, so we will not be using a lot of defense mastery's stuff or kit, and also the spear abilities will not be used, but I will show them as well for the sake of hunting mastery showcase. Now let's start with of course the bottom row. For starters, we have this passive, Wood Lore. Now this ability, what it does is it increases your defensive ability, so you can receive less critical hits or even dodge attacks, melee attacks, and also increases your attack speed. But remember, read the text. Wood Lore does say that this ability only works if you have a bow, a spear, or a thrown weapon. So you can see I have my Dijon's Pride, my really strong bow, and I have a basic attack speed of 135%. If I remove some points in Wood Lore, of course, my attack speed will go down. Of course, as well with the spear, attack speed 127. If I level this Wood Lore, shut up, big guy. If I level this Wood Lore, my attack speed will go up by a lot. That's nice. Now instead, I'm going to equip this Veteran Large Axe of Reckless Power. I have an attack speed of 187 and a defensive ability of 1150. If I remove some of my point from this Wood Lore, you can see the Wood Lore did not give me any kind of attack speed and did not give me any kind of defensive ability. Instead, if I put the points back, of course, and if I put this lance instead as my weapon, look at my defensive ability, it skyrockets by 350. And of course, the attack speed does as well. Now remember, read your text. Don't only jump on the stats of the ability, read your text. This is especially true in some abilities in hunting mastery, because this mastery can only work with three types of weapons: bows, throwing weapons, and spears. These are the main three weapons you're gonna use in hunting mastery, and if you don't want to use this weapon, don't choose hunting mastery. Most of these skills will not work with any kind of other weapon, like for example Wood Lore, Takedown, Gouge, Volley, Spear Dance. This doesn't work. Just don't use any other kind of weapon. Just use thrown weapons, bows, or spears. Now, just talking about spears, let's talk about Takedown. Now this is a fairly useful ability. What it does, it increases your pierce damage by a flat amount, it does reduction to enemies' health, and it does movement speed. It does a single hit against an enemy and can only be used with a spear. So if I put my Takedown ability here, you can see I cannot use that because I have a bow equipped. So let's equip a spear and let's use Takedown. What it does a single hit against an enemy. Even far away, you will run towards that enemy and hit it and hit him with takedown. It will do a lot of pierce damage and reduction to enemy's health. Now let's kill him. This ability is a fairly simple one. It does not cost a lot of energy. It does a great amount of piercing damage. And the most useful thing about this ability is the movement speed. You can use it against far away enemies to reach them really fast, and if you have to run away or run past them, you will do so with great speed. This is really nice in the later part of the game, where maybe you want to farm some bosses, and to help you do that, you can use takedown. Now this is also useful in the early part of the game. This does a greater amount of damage because it's flat, and you can use that to snipe out some annoying enemies with this ability. Now this only does piercing damage, but with the augment skill Eviscerate you can also instead use bleeding damage. Now of course these damages are the main kind of damages that this mastery will do, so they will be increased by other kind of abilities and also your gear. Now remember, Eviscerate is just adds bleeding damage over time. It's really simple, but the amount of damage this ability does is really high. So if you are thinking of dealing damage with takedown, I guess it's better to put some points in Eviscerate instead of takedown itself for the early game. Maybe in the later part of the game you will have more piercing damage scaling. For example, Apollo's Will, it does 106% piercing damage, so maybe takedown basic ability will be best to level. Now that's basically it for takedown. Remember, you can only use a spear with this ability. Now let's instead talk about Ensnare. Ensnare is an ability. Let's use it on this button. It will throw a net in a target direction, and it will trap enemies for a long duration. You can see they cannot move. They are not taking any damage because the basic skill will not do any kind of damage, but they will be trapped and their defensive ability will be reduced. So any physical damage will have a greater chance to inflict a critical hit. This is nice if you are inflicting physical damage. If not, then this skill is not that useful. Now you can see I hit both of those spiders because they were near each other. Upgrading the skill will upgrade the meter radius of the ability. You can see from 1.1 it goes to 1.2. It's really low. They have to be near each other for that to work. I only trapped the Orbed Weaver this time. So be mindful of that. This ability will probably only hit one or maybe two enemies if they are really near each other. And that's it. If you want this ability to deal any kind of damage, you will have to upgrade Barbed Netting, which will make the Ensnare ability do bleeding damage over time every second. This ability will do a greater amount of bleeding damage for starting out, and most of the enemies will die from this kind of bleeding damage. Now, of course, we are in Legendary, so this bleeding will not be as high. You can see the damage is negligible, but for starting out in the early game, this can be a great ability to level up. Ensnare with Barbed Netting will do a great amount of damage. Now remember, Ensnare is a control ability. It is under the effect of entrapment resistances. So If enemies have entrapment resistances, both the stun with both the entrapment from a snare and the damage will be affected by the enemy's resistance. So against bosses, this ability is totally useless. They have a large amount of resistances against control, so ensnare will be useless. Don't use it against bosses, and even some hero monsters have high resistances against control spells, so be mindful of that and don't be caught off guard. Moving on to the second row, we have Herbal Remedy. This is an ability that will increase both your health regeneration and poison resistance, which is the main focus of this ability, for a great amount of time, minutes. Now, you can see my poison resistance is 80% because I am in normal difficulty, but if I instead go to legendary, I will have a minus 100% all resistances, except for physical, and my poison resistance will be really bad, minus 5%. Now this can be compensated with the fact that Herbal Remedy gives 100% poison resistance, so just by casting it to me. By the way, you can also cast it on allies if you are playing with friends. Of course the servers are down nowadays, but you can also put it on pets if you want. There is no cooldown of this ability. Now you can see my poison resistance is perfect. Now remember, if you have some natural poison resistance, you don't have to put points to the maximum. You just have to put points enough just to
untie the strands of
reach the cap of 80%. So if I cast it again, I am still at the cap. Maybe if I put even less points.
Relearn your may destiny teach you greatness.
Shut your ass. Now 66% Herbal Remedy. I instead have 61%. So if I put less points, I will receive less poison resistance. Just put enough so that you will be capped. Moving on, this is a fairly simple spell. There is not much that you can say about this ability. Moving on, we have Art of the Hunt. Now this is an aura skill and is basically one of the core abilities of this mastery. What this does, wait a second, is it gives you damage against beasts, beastmen, as well as percentage increase in pierce and bleeding damage. And this does not give it only to you, but also to your pets, your allies as well, just by reserving some energy. This is of course a great skill to increase your damage, not only to beasts and beastmen, but against all types of enemies that will receive pierce and bleeding damage, because those are the main kind of damages this mastery can do, from eviscerate, from barbed netting, or any other kind of ability, maybe your gear. Pierce damage will only be used, will probably only come from your weapons, and some kind of ability like takedown. Now this is a good ability because it's also an aura, but it becomes really good as well with their augment skill, with its augment skill. Now, Find Cover gives you a high chance to avoid projectiles, which of course can mean enemy attacks and enemy abilities. So this will give you a lot of protection against them. And it's a nice ability to level up, but in the later part of the game, where you are more scared of dying because they are stronger. Just keep this ability in the early part of the game and focus on other damaging ability. Now the other augment skill, Trailblazing, is instead a really nice ability. It gives you a huge amount of movement speed. You can see my character is moving really fast thanks to this. And also it increases your reduced entrapment duration to the maximum just by putting 1 point. You can see if I remove all those points, just at level 1 I will get 100% reduced entrapment duration. Put 1 point, I will get the maximum trap resistance. This is nice ability to run around. The faster you can get this ability, the better. Just running like a race car will feel so great. You will play much faster and you will level, of course, much faster by moving around with a great speed. Such a nice ability. Of course, this also works with your pets. Really nice quality of life for an augment skill. Now let's move on to the third ability from the second row, which is marksmanship. This ability can be put instead of your normal attack, so let's use that. You can see this ability can be used with bows and throwing weapons, only with these weapons. Now this ability, what it does, let's remove the augment skill first.
Not taken may now be followed. Your choices have been
What it does is it only increases your basic flat piercing damage and your projectile speed. So you will have a nice, much nicer chance of hitting enemies if they are moving. Now you can see this ability does not increase your damage by percentage base, like some abilities in Dream Masteries or maybe other kinds of left click attack abilities, but will only do a flat amount of damage, which is of course less amount of damage in the later parts of the game, where the main focus of your damage will be your weapon, and scaling by a percentage your weapon will be of course a great amount of damage add-on. Now this can be solved by using the puncture shot arrows. This gives your shots a nice chance to pass through enemies and hit multiple ones, one behind the other. You can see it goes all the way up to 75%, and it gives you a nice increase percentage in pierce and bleeding damage, which is of course really nice. Now you can see that this ability now can pass through enemies. It can do a lot of damage, but you will only hit one enemy at a time if they are not one behind the other. So you will be lacking in area of effect damage. Ensnare has a really low area of effect. This only hits one enemy. This is an aura skill. This is a buff skill. You will not do any kind of area damage. So one kind of core ability for this mastery will be scatter shot arrows. This gives your arrows the ability to fragment anytime they hit an enemy, and this fragment will deal piercing damage and bleeding damage each fragment. So you can say at the maximum level they will do 8 to 10, and any fragment will deal these damages. It's easier to test at Sparta because there are training dummies. You can see I am attacking the left enemy, left target, but the right one is also taking damage, and this damage that you're seeing is the sharpener from this ability, Scatter Shot Arrow. I am dealing piercing damage to this target, even though I am attacking the left one, because the sharpener are launching from this target at all direction, and some are hitting this target as well. Now you can see he's not taking any kind of bleeding damage, because targets cannot take bleeding damage. But if I could attack any other enemies, then I will do also bleeding damage. This is a nice ability to deal with hordes of enemies if they are one behind the other. Any enemies that you pierce through will proc this ability, Scatter Shot, so these will go in combination with each other. And any enemies that you will hit will do the fragments. So the more enemies, the more fragments, the more damage. It's nicer for the lacking amount of area of damage in this mastery. You will probably have to use marksmanship if you are doing a bow build like this one, or a ranged build. Now you will be kind of missing a single target or maybe left target attacking ability in this combination of mastery, if you are instead doing a melee build with a shield. You cannot use marksmanship, of course, and Dream Mastery does not have a left click attacking mouse ability. So just be mindful of that. This is a great ability to use, so if you can't use it, you will be missing out on a lot of damage, both single target and area of effect. Now let's start talking about Monster Lure. This is an ability that creates a decoy like this around you, and this device that you create has a health pool, and it provokes enemies in a large radius around it to attack it instead of yourself. Now let's see it in action against some spiders. Now you can see they switched target almost instantly, and if I throw it again, they will start attacking again the decoy. I'm passing them, I'm passing near, they are not changing aggro in any kind of way. And you can see now the lure died, and it tanked a really great amount of attacks. Now it exploded at the end and dealt about a third of their health pool to the spiders. And that explosion is not part of the main ability, but instead part of the Detonate Augment skill. What this ability does, it gives the monster lure an explosion at the end of its duration and life. So when it runs out, it explodes in physical and fire damage, as well as stunning nearby enemies. And this is great because not only damages enemies, but you can trigger it manually by having more than one monster lure. Now the maximum number limit is 3, so when you are creating another, the first one will explode. So you can almost manually trigger them and deal damage that way. This is a nice farming method if you didn't have ensnare, or maybe don't have any kind of good weapon or attack speed, or maybe don't have any farming ability in other masteries. Because this does a really high amount of damage to a large area of effect around it. Now this can be good for farming, but remember that the monster lure won't fool monsters of high tier like bosses. Most bosses will ignore the lure and instead attack you. So keep that in mind. The monster lure is a great skill to avoid damage against normal enemies, but against bosses will not be much of use. Let's instead talk about Call of the Hunt. Now this is an ability that has a great amount of duration, and in an aura around you, every attack that you deal will deal bleeding damage over time, as well as increasing your attack speed and percentage damage to beastmen and beasts. Now this also applies to your pets and your allies, so it can be a great skill to increase your damage coming from your pets. But remember, this has a great cooldown. I think it's 150 at least seconds cooldown. So you will probably only use it against bosses and powerful monsters such as hero monsters, which you have a hard time dealing damage to, because this only increases your damage, and the augment skill will do the same, further increasing your damage, especially pierce damage and bleeding damage with exploit weakness. This only does this kind of damages, and it's fairly simple augment skill. Now the next augment skill instead is finesse, and it gives you a chance to reduce enemies' health by a percentage, but the main focus is the massive increase in offensive ability by a percentage and flat. So you can see I have really high offensive ability already, but because I'm using a bow, the offensive ability I have is useless, because I cannot crit. The offensive ability I get from this ability cannot benefit me in any way. Call of the Hunt increases massively your damage output, but this can also be further improved using Steady Prey, which instead increases your damage by reducing enemy resistances. Now this ability has it all. It has a low cooldown, a high duration, which is longer than its cooldown. It has a great radius, so you can hit multiple targets at once, and it has a nice effect. The nice effect in this case is it decreases enemies' physical resistances and pierce resistances by a great amount. So you can say you will deal 166% of the damage you will normally deal using this ability. And using the augment skill Flash Out, you will further reduce different resistances like bleeding damage that you will deal greatly in this skill tree, or elemental resistances that maybe you deal elemental damage from other masteries or your gear, and as well as defensive ability Shred. Now these go a long way for increasing your critical hits. If you are doing a melee build, both the offensive ability increase and the defensive ability decrease to enemies will massively increase your critical hit damages, as well as the physical damage bonus and pierce damage bonus with exploit weaknesses. You will do a great amount of damage. Sometimes you could also one-shot bosses with this combination and using a great weapon and build. Don't underestimate Flash Out and Steady Prey. It is the best skill from this ability tree. Moving on, let's talk about Gouge. Now this is an ability that has a chance to proc anytime you attack. Again, you have to attack with a blow or a spear this time. Throwing weapons are out of the way. And what it does is simple. It has a chance to deal bleeding damage over time. That is as simple as it gets. Moving on, To the next row we don't have any kind of new ability, so let's skip it again. We already have seen this passive. Here we have instead volley. It is another proc chance ability, which is even better than gouge. And what it does, it gives you the chance to attack 3 times in quick succession while using again the bow, the spear, or the throwing weapons. So let's see it in action. Using the bow, maybe one that we can see the projector, otherwise they're too fast. Sometimes this time you see there are multiple projectiles thrown. When you see that kind of visual effect, you know that volley procced and I threw 3 hits at the same time. If instead you want to watch the melee version of the ability, I will show you that with a spear on the dummies in Sparta. So let's see that in action. You see, I just procced and I dealt 3 kinds of instances just on the first attack. 1, 1, 1, 3. 3 attacks in quick succession. This is the kind of ability, and it is of course great because sometimes you just triple your damage, which is of course nice. Now, as the last skill of this mastery tree, here we have Spear Dance. And what it does, it attacks all around you using the spear, and it has a chance to fear enemies that you hit, and all the enemies that you hit now attack slower for a small duration. Now, the ability at the starting point will do a lower amount of damage than your normal attack.
Roads not taken. Your choices have been made.
You can see the starting point will deal 20% physical damage less from your normal attack, but in turn it has the ability to attack all enemies that are near you. Oh yes, of course I have to put some points. Spear Dance. So let's group some enemies and show the ability. Now I just hit all of them with my spear attack, and if I in this case have some spear with any kind of proc chance or ability or damaging kind of stuff, all of them will be hit and all of them will be taking, in this case, poison damage over time. So all effects from your gear are applied because this is essentially an attack. And of course this is great to apply all your debuffs to enemies at the same time, as well as the abilities debuff. Or if you have some kind of lifesteal, for example, Necklace of Harmonia gives you lifesteal on hit. For any enemies that you hit, you will also heal. So let's for example find these 3 enemies, and you will see I will hit all of them and I will heal a lot. The better the spear, the better the damage, the better the heal. So I will recommend this ability with some kind of healing from attacks converted to health. And that is the best this ability can do. The slower attack is nice, of course, but remember this ability is totally useless against the bosses. At the higher points you will deal, yes, 36% physical attack bonus, but remember that the chance to fear and the slower attack do not work on bosses, and the multiplier is not that high in comparison to other multipliers like Exploit Weakness, flash out, or maybe just critically hitting your enemies from these abilities. It's nice, but it's not that high in comparison to other abilities. The best kind of use you can do with this is hitting a large group of enemies. Remember, this does not have a target limit, like Warfare Mastery Whirling. This can hit any number of enemies that are near you and hit them all. So hit a large group of enemies and kill them fast while they are surrounding you. Now, we have seen almost, or rather all of these abilities in action. So let me equip all my stuff back again to show you what the real build looks like. Shut up, man. Now I will respect my points, because some of these abilities I will not use in my build. So for example this one, and I guess that's
May
it.
destiny teach you greatness.
Shut up. Now I have almost everything maxed out. The only thing I don't have is Monster Lure, is Herbal Remedy, which in fact I still don't need. As I said before, I already am capped out. This, as I said, I don't need the offensive ability because I am a bold build, and even though I could level this ability, I am not doing anything with it because I'm already at the capping movement speed, capped movement speed. So I guess I will just put points anywhere. Let's spend them all somewhere, like this. Okay. Now let's activate everything. Okay, now I'm ready. What this ability and this build will do? It's a normal attack build. Hit an enemy, they die. You can see any enemy dies almost instantly. I deal 8,000 damage per second. And I did not use any of my abilities, so I did not use Study Prey. 9,000 damage. 16,000 damage. You can see reducing enemy resistance is insane. And let's use then Call of the Hunt. 11,000. 14,000. 14,000 again. You can see this ability this build can deal a massive amount of damage to enemies, physical and pierce. Most bosses will go down easily with this build. You can see I have massive amount of resistances even at legendary difficulty. The only thing I'm missing out is lightning resistances, which I will fix with Rally, because this ability gives elemental resistance. So against the Dragonians in Orient Act, this resistance will be fixed. And the only secondary resistance I'm missing is slow resistance, which in turn this mastery, this Iron Will, does not provide. So this is a very successful build. It has Call of the Hunt almost permanent, because it has 93 second recharge and it lasts 64 seconds. So 2/3 of the time it's active, so I can use it on any kind of enemy freely. Can deal a massive amount of damage to any enemy in the game. The only kind of problem with this build is the slow, as I said, and enemies that you cannot life leech. because these enemies are alive, I can heal a lot by doing a lot of damage, and I can heal myself quite a lot. But for example, undead, you cannot heal, so you are harder. You are working harder to keep yourself alive. But of course, for those cases, you have this ability, Unyielding Phalanx, and of course, against bosses, you have the massive Colossus form, which will grant you basic immortality. You will not die in any way while under Colossus form. This is a build where you don't wanna die, and you wanna stay away from enemies as much as possible, sniping them from afar. Of course, it's a high level build, and I programmed it quite well after I found the Jones Pride. Now, I hope this build is great for you and that you liked this video about hunting mastery. And now I guess we will just talk about the leveling of this mastery. So for starters, this mastery does not level fast at all. If you have any kind of other mastery to help you with, use them. Use maybe Ring of Flame if you have Earth Mastery, or any kind of farming ability. In the lower levels, Hunting Mastery will only deal single target damage, and it will only shine in the later part of the game, because most of your damages are percentage based. For example, Art of the Hunt, percent of fears, pierce and bleeding damage, or exploit weaknesses. You will have a lot of single target damage, bleeding damage, which of course does not work against undead. You will have a hard time. My recommendation is, if you are thinking of doing or equipping a staff or any kind of non-spear, non-bow, non-lance, don't choose hunting. If you are planning to do that instead, level up Wood Lore as fast as you can to give this juicy attack speed and keep leveling this ability at the maximum. After this, climb the bar as fast as you can, put 1 point in the Art of the Hunt, and 1 point in Marksmanship if you are using a ranged build with Wood Lore. After that, you can equip in one hand a bow and in one hand a spear, at least, or maybe you just use the spear, and put at least 1 point in takedown so you can run around using this ability to farm faster and move faster as well. This will help greatly against annoying enemies, and that they will die faster. Now, after that you have put some points in Art of the Hunt and Marksmanship and maxed out Wood Lore, you are probably here in the bar. You will level up again the bar as much as you can to get Gouge, but mainly the Trailblazing skill. This will help you move faster and farm faster in any way. If you can, I never tried it in fact, but I saw some people do this and it was very effective. You can try putting just a few points, maybe 1, in Monster Lure, so it has a really low health pool, and instead putting a lot of points in Detonate. So this ability will do a great amount of damage and will explode almost instantly, because the Monster Lure has a low health pool. So you can deal a massive amount of area of effect damage to all the enemies, farm faster with this ability. Move fast, farm fast. Great combination of abilities. Also, it has a low cost amount, and it also provides great protection because the enemies are hitting this instead of you. Now the problem with this is bosses. You are not doing well against bosses, so my recommendation is put just a few points, just 1 or 2, in Call of the Hunt and Exploit Weakness to increase your damage, and try to get this Study Prey if you are doing pierce and physical damage as much as possible to the maximum level. This will help you against bosses if you have a great weapon. Now keep leveling the bar, and the next thing you are going to level to the maximum is Marksmanship, Puncture Shot and Scatter Shot Arrow. Respec from Detonate and Monster Lure take away all the points if you want, and instead go full attack damage with these 3 abilities. The later part of the game, if you are doing instead a melee build, you will want Finesse, but I still recommend hunting with Scatter Shot Arrows and Puncture Shots for the Arrow of Effect damage. If you have a lot of points and have maxed out the bar already, then for the Arrow of Effect, if you are doing melee, you can also get Spear Dance. It is an impressive skill if you are doing melee for farming. Really good, not for bosses though. Of course, take volley when you can, because it triples your damage. I would recommend skipping Barbed Netting, or maybe putting some points early game for farming until you reach the Detonate ability. But for the most part, later on you must take away all the points from here and put them elsewhere. At the end of normal difficulty, you need to have Flash Out and Study Praise maxed out. This ability only is necessary if you are doing bleeding and defensive ability crits with melee build or elemental damages. Instead, you can let it at level 0 if you are not doing this kind of damages. This is a must-have to level fast. And also, apart from this one, Trailblazing, is also another ability to max out as fast as possible. Move fast, farm fast, as we said before. Now, in the later part of the game, do not forget about Find Cover. A lot of enemies, especially in the Hades Palaces, there is a particularly hard side quest in Act 4. Where are the Hades' generals? Now, this general, they are all ranged attackers, and all of them are really powerful. But the thing is, they are ranged, so you can escape most of their damages either running around or just avoiding projectiles. So if you are doing hardcore, this ability can be great against Makai Archers or even Dragonians, because some of their shotgun projectiles are, as I said, projectiles, so you can avoid them. Remember, this is not to be underestimated. Now, for the hunting mastery and this build, Hunter 3, this is basically it. Now, I will ask you to put a like if you liked this video, and recommend this video to your friends if they are also fans of Titan Quest 1. Now, have a great day.